Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Shak's Bass podcast. I'm joined today by the wonderful Chris Horrocks. How are you doing today, Chris?
Hello, Shak. How are you, man? Thanks almost for having me on. I really appreciate being asked.
Oh, I'm really grateful that you could come on. I'm a massive fan of the podcast In the Pocket. I've been listening to that for a long time. It was great to meet you at the guitar show in Birmingham in person. And I think you're doing an absolutely fantastic job with your YouTube channel. That short you did of Surfacing by Slipknot was absolutely awesome. It took me
Oh,
back. Right back in year 7, I was the only kid wearing a Slipknot hoodie because I was really into them when they first come out, and I got some
mm.
strange looks for that. But absolutely loved that first album. But yeah, it's really coming on what you're doing on YouTube, and I think it's absolutely great. To get things started, I just thought maybe for anyone who doesn't know you, could you provide like a brief backstory of how you ended up doing what you do in the bass world?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, my name's Chris. Obviously, on Instagram and stuff, I tend to go by that guy on bass. I'm a session musician based in the northwest of England. I do everything from remote recordings to wedding gigs and pretty much everything in between. As you've mentioned, Shaq, I've got a podcast with my friend Johnny. We've been doing that together for I don't really know, like in 2 years, maybe a bit longer than that. That goes really well. I've got a YouTube channel, which I only really started taking seriously kind of the start of this year. So there's only about 4 or 5 episodes on there at the moment, but I've got another one ready to go for next week. Yeah, I'm a content creator. I'm an Ashdown artist. I play bass, obviously. What else? What else? What else? I was a guitarist first. Shocking, I know. Played guitar since I was 12, and then genuinely one day, aged 22, or 20, maybe even a little bit older, maybe 23 actually, a friend of mine literally said to me, my band that I'm just starting we've got our first gig, but we don't have a bass player yet. Would you mind? I'll lend you my bass that's just like sat at home, some really bad Ibanez bass with dead strings on it. Um, could you learn our set and just play the gig for us? And I was like, yeah, why not? Yeah, sure. So that happened, and then I did another gig with them, and then in the crowd at that second gig was another band who then reached out to me and said, "We saw you play with this band. We're actually auditioning bass players for our band, and we'd like you to audition." So did that, got the gig, and then basically, if you imagine a seesaw, one side's playing guitar, the other's playing bass. Just more and more things were happening in the bass department. Really, the phone was ringing and people were asking for bass players for weddings and stuff like that, and I just drifted in that direction. I still play guitar, but at home, and I do a couple of weddings a year as a guitarist. I mean, just over my shoulder here is a wardrobe, and inside that wardrobe is 12 electric guitars, and they're all just sat there, just like mocking me, being like, why have you abandoned us?" But
Yeah,
if I've covered everything, like, yeah, that's pretty much me, I'd say, in the shortest way I possibly can.
that's great to go right back to the sort of where it all started then. So the first section's talking about bass guitars. So it's first, last, best, worst. So the first question is, what was your first bass? And I know you said you got that one handed to you, but what was the first one you bought, and do you still have it?
Yeah, so obviously there was that Ibanez bass. I don't really know what it was. It was like a passive PJ 4 string kind of thing, on like the budget side, and it was fine, but it wasn't mine, so I just had to lend it for a few weeks and then give it back. The first bass I bought was a classic vibe jazz bass that I got
Nice.
second hand off the singer of this second band just told about in this story, and she sold it to me for about 60 quid. Just a white, with a taut pick guard. Genuinely really nice bass. Like, quite, I think it had been around for quite a while. Really solid bass. Served me well for a really long time. And regretfully, I've sold it. I sold it about, I'm going to pretend, about 18 months ago, maybe a little bit less. And genuinely, honestly, I regret selling it. I really actually miss that bass. I'd since ruined it. I put active EMG pickups in it, which are nice, don't get me wrong, but they're not really my vibe. I'm not really an active guy anymore. So I wish what I'd just done is got some just like really cheap, just bang average jazz bass pickups and put it back, and I don't think I would have ever sold that bass because I spent a lot of time with that bass, did a lot of touring with that instrument. It's no longer mine, unfortunately. So I ever see it, I think I'll buy it back off if I can find it. But I sold it for a lot more than I paid for it, which I guess is all right. But yeah, that's the first one, I'd say. What was the next category on that?
So then first, then now the last one that you bought.
The last bass I bought. Oh yeah, the last bass I bought was one of the Fender Fullerton bass ukuleles. I bought that
Oh,
last year,
nice.
and it's a game changer for me. I really struggle to concentrate on a lot of things. I've got ADHD, and that's kind of just stayed with me my entire adult life. And so to practice when I don't want to practice it can be very difficult to me. I find it very hard to motivate myself to do anything. So I've almost got to trick myself and come up with ways to sort of bypass the excuses and just dive straight into practice. And one of the best things I've ever done to do that is there's literally just a bass ukulele, not in a case or anything. It's just out and it's just next to my desk in my office, just next to on the floor, basically, leaning in the corner in the desk on the desk. And it means when I need to practice something quickly, like, one song for a gig, or I hear something and go, I want to learn that. There's no getting it out of the case, plugging the lead in, turning the amp on, plugging your headphones in. There's, setting up your Logic and all that sort of stuff. I don't have to do any of that. I just grab the bass. They're really well constructed. It basically never goes out of tune, which is really nice as well. And you can just play acoustically, and they feel really nice, sound really good. So that's probably the last bass I bought, I think, if I remember correctly, and it was a very worthwhile purchase.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, a lot of people poo-poo the acoustic bass, but I've just shot a video a few weeks ago that's coming out, and I'm all for it. So I know it's not quite an electric bass, but for the same reason, so like it's sunny now and stuff. Just going and sitting in your garden, chilling out and playing your bass, and no plugging in your cable, no getting an amp. It's literally like I know it's not loud enough to jam with a band or even acoustic guitar player, but the ease of it
No.
being out. I've played my bass so much more since I've had it because, like you say, I just want to learn that riff or how do you play that again? Just you want to brush up on something, it's there. I can just pick it up. There's no getting your stuff out, getting your pedal board out and stuff. So I'm an advocate of that, and I think that's what you get for your sort of little ukulele bass as well. So moving on then. So what's the best bass you've ever played?
Ooh, ever played? Ever?
Yeah, you don't
Ooh.
have to have bought this one.
Ooh, that's a really best bass I've ever played. Like I'm doing this, like while I'm thinking. I don't know, I've been very privileged to try. Oh, you know what? Okay, I'm just gonna go with this. So at the guitar show the other month, we went to the stand for the Vintage Bass Room, and Paul, the owner of Vintage Bass Room, basically says to me and Johnny while we're talking to him, like, "Oh, lads, come and look at this," and he pulls out Nate Mendel from the Foo Fighters, one of his basses, and it was the bass played on when they headlined Wembley Stadium for the first time, and it's the bass from the music video to The Pretender.
Oh,
So
awesome.
getting to play that's like rock and roll Hall of Fame. That should be in a Hard Rock cafe somewhere,
Yeah,
really.
it should be
Not
behind
just
glass. Even getting
yeah,
to touch
no,
it.
I shouldn't be getting no. Someone like me doesn't have no right to touch that. Absolutely, but I would say that, and it was really nice. It played really good. It sounded really good. I've had the opportunity to play lots of nice basses. Going to shooting content at places like Bass Bros and going to like the Fender showroom in London, and just things that have fallen into my hands that I've had an opportunity to try. I've had the chance to try some really nice things, but I'd probably say that's probably the best, or at least the most iconic bass that I've ever personally played.
Yeah, that's a good shout. That yeah, I didn't expect that. That's a good one. So then, what's the worst bass you've ever played?
Ooh, okay, right. So this is really controversial. So, well, it's not. It's a bit unfair, I'd say. So, I went to Bass Bros a couple of weeks ago to shoot an episode for the podcast, which isn't out yet. It might be out by the time this comes out, but it'll be close. At time of recording, it's not going to be out for a few weeks.
Yeah,
And we we asked our patrons on the podcast in the pocket to tell us what's in stock at Bass Pros that you'd like us to try. So one of the things they asked us to try was this kind of I think it was a Hofner, like a really old Hofner, not like specifically the sort of McCartney violin bass, but a similar kind of construction. And this was really old. This was from the 60s or late 60s, maybe early 70s. And I got the chance to play this, and I just I could barely sound a note on this thing. The action was about a mile off the fretboard, and if you played the G string too hard, it would ping off the neck. You know, like imagine bending it down. It'd bend it
Yeah,
down, and it would come away, roll off the edge of the fretboard. And it's just an old instrument at the end of the day. It probably just needed a bit of TLC, which is fine. But I hated it, and that's on film. That's gonna be in the episode. So you're gonna hear me literally just trying to butcher these Paul McCartney bass lines on this poor bass, which was very expensive and very old. But I'm gonna have to give that one the mantle of worst bass I've ever played, unfortunately.
no props. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so bass playing then. So I'm going to go into the next section. So first questions, what bands or artists are you currently playing with?
Ooh, playing with. At the moment, I don't play with like an original act, someone who composes their own music. I tend to focus on the moment. I've just been doing lots of like corporate work, like playing in entertainment bands, wedding bands, corporate stuff. So I'm kind of how many bands? I think I'm in about 15 bands at the moment, but they're all just wedding bands where I'll gig with each of them 3 or 4 times a month, really. So
I see.
it's not the most exciting answer to that question, unfortunately. There's been a lot of bands I've played with. Obviously, I've had my own bands. Like there's a band called Darla that I was in for a long time. They're still going, but I'm just not in the band anymore. I've played with like like an alternative rock duo called Dirty Blonde. That's who I opened for the Sex Pistols with. I used to play for a singer called Kim Jennett, who's been on The Voice, and she had her own solo band that I was part of for a while. I used to be in an act called Dead Romantic, which had some involvement with Sony Music, and they've gone off to Canada now. But that had some decent success for a little bit. And yeah, I've been in lots and lots of bands, maybe too many, I would argue now. So at the moment, I'm enjoying my freelance life, bass player for hire.
Yeah, that's great. So sort of sticking with that theme then of the sort of corporate or wedding band thing then, how long would you say a typical set is for a wedding gig?
Well, there'll be sets plural. That's what I've found. So sometimes I'll get booked and it's 1 60-minute set. Usually, though, you're looking at the very shortest, it's 2 45-minute sets. Most of the time, it's 2 60-minute sets. So after that, you'll get 2 60s, 3 40s. The worst I've done is 3 50-minute sets. That's savage because you only have 10 minutes between sets. So you literally have 10 minutes to. I wasn't driving for this gig, so for me it was I'd do my 55-minute set, I'd run to the loo, down an espresso martini, and then go back on stage and do another 55, and I repeated that, and then I walked across the road to a hotel and went to sleep. And then one really interesting one I did once, I did a gig in a nightclub in Wolverhampton, of all places, and you do. Is it 5 or 4? I think it's 4 30-minute sets, but
Right.
you have 30 minutes between the sets. So you're doing 30 on, 30 off, basically. And I think that was 9 a.m. Sorry, not 9 a.m., 9 p.m. Wow. They weren't
That's a long
open.
gig.
9 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Wow. 12 p.m. And I think we did a 1 a.m. as well. So that's 5 30-minute sets. But that was quite nice, actually, because you had. But that was also very strange because as soon as you got going and you were like, right, I'm in my groove, there's 2 songs left, then you're off again. So you're doing like 6 or 7 songs, but like it's non-stop. And then you stood in a dressing room for 30 minutes, like having a Red Bull or whatever, and then going back on and then driving 2 hours home. Very strange. But the to conclude, like, it really varies. It really varies. Like this Saturday, I've got a 2 60-minute set, but then like the following Tuesday, I've got a 3 45s. You know, it really does vary, but it's never one set.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what I was going to ask then, do you use chord sheets or do you memorize everything? So I've played in cover bands like for years in the past, when I was a drummer mainly. And when I had to learn loads of songs in a short space of time, I'd write out the sort of song orders, crib sheets that really helped me just have it on the floor and I knew where I was up to. And it allowed me to learn a song in like 20, 30 minutes as opposed to like learning it properly, like beat for 3, 4 hours. So do you kind of have your own notation and do you take that with you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting we're talking about that because the gig I've got at the end of this week is I'm filling in. I'm the dep basically, but and there's a lot of material that I'm not familiar with. Well, not necessarily not familiar with songs that I've heard, but I've never had to play. So like I've never had to play "Best of You" by Foo Fighters before. So I've got to learn that. I'm very familiar with the song, but don't know it, if that makes sense. But what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to sort of not be super reliant on charting because I've been charting for years. Like that's how I get by learning songs so quickly. I think my record is 30 in one day, which I had to do for like a proper emergency. I got the call at like 8 a.m. and the gig was that night. So it was like for like a Kerrang themed club night where they had a band and I had to learn all their set, which is about 31 songs. And that took me all day, and then I legged it to the gig and played it straight away. So yeah, I've done a lot of charting in the past. I'm trying to get away from it because I think if you learn a song and you chart it, it's very difficult to get away from the chart. Like there are songs that are in the sort of wedding band repertoire that because I've learnt them and charted them to learn them, they're not really committed to my memory. So I have to look at the chart to remember them. Like a really obvious one for me is Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. I just can't seem to remember it because I've spent so long playing it while sort of like briefly glancing at a not a piece of paper. I just scribble notes down on my phone. You know, we're talking very little things like, you know, stop in the first half of verse 2. Bridge goes down to A. You know, like these little things, or don't forget the octave up part in the last chorus. You know, these just little. You'll have the same thing, I imagine, playing drums. The less. It's not like you've wrote out on drum notation the song.
Yeah.
You've more kind of gone half time, second chorus, the tom. Don't forget the tom bit in the bridge. It's those kind of things. But yeah, lots of charting. Like I'll give you an example. Like I'll just point it at the camera. Like I just do. Like this is like Love Story by Taylor Swift, for example. I've just wrote this down to remind myself. But like that's for the gig. Hopefully this isn't backwards for everyone watching. But you'll see I've wrote them down as the I've wrote them down numbers. As the Nashville numbers system, which if you don't know, for those of you listening who don't know, that is basically you're taking the chords of the major scale and then assigning a number to them. So if you're in C major, C is 1, F is 4, A is 6, you know, these kind of things. B is 7. And you're just writing down, you know, if something's going to be C, A, F, G, back to C, you'll just write 1, 6, 4, 5, 1. And I tend to find that's a nicer way to write these things down because it means if the song changes key, you've not learnt the song as C, A, F, G. You've learnt the song as 1, 6, 4, 5. So if the key suddenly changes to G, it's fine because what was 1, 6, 1, 6, 4, 5 is now G, E, C, D. You know, that kind of thing. Well, I hesitated then. I thought to myself, if I get this wrong now, my career is over. So yeah, lots of charting. Very, very familiar with charting, but I'm trying to get away from it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what I was going to ask then, what's your favourite song to cover in a function band context? So
Easy.
I suppose a lot of the sets are quite similar.
Yeah.
But do you have a song that stands out where you go, oh, this is great?
Yes, I do. And it's September by Earth, Wind and Fire. That's my...
Oh, nice.
It's always that one. Yeah, that's my favourite song of all time as well. It's
cool.
great, and it's great to play on bass. I think the bass, apart from like the the trumpets and stuff the bass makes that song, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, the chain's pretty good. Like when the chain comes up, you're going, "Oh yeah, now you're gonna notice me as the bass player."
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
would say, yeah, September, Earth, Wind and Fire, and I'm gutted because this gig I've got at the weekend, as of this morning, it's been taken out of the set.
No,
And
what's going on?
it's been replaced with Call Me Al, which is
You get a
fine.
bit of slap bass in there,
Well, the
don't you?
bass line's the same all the way through, and then you've got the
Yeah,
weird backwards thing that no one really knows how to play because it's recorded backwards.
yeah,
That I
yeah,
think I'm gonna have to try and rework out. There's a way you can cheat and make it kind of sound like you know how to play it, but you obviously it's impossible because it's the slap part of Call Me Al is they slapped it, recorded it to tape,
reverse it.
reversed the tape, and then replayed it in. So it's an
Ah,
impossible
okay.
bass line, but it just sounds so cool. So yeah, September,
Yeah,
Earth, Wind
yeah,
and Fire, no hesitation, literally. But I also really like Seven Nation Army. I know that's really a bit cliched, but that's always fun. You play that, you know, near the end. After this, you're going to play Mr. Brightside and then Proud Mary. You know,
yeah.
Jobs Are Good and Seven Nation Army. Some guy puts his tie around his head. You know, it's always. I've I struggle. If people aren't moving around Seven Nation Army, I think you need to get a life. Personally,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. Yeah, it's one of them that gets people up, and you know, anything that's like got that good beat behind it and it's good tempo. It's always fun to play.
absolutely. Just do it. Come on, have a laugh.
Yeah, that sounds good. I was quite happy about those sort of insights into the cover band scene from a bass player point of view. I've done covers for years as a drummer before I played bass, and it's so different on drums because you can really just get by without kind of knowing the song because there's no like sort of melody. You don't need to know what the note is.
Yeah,
So with
you're
drums, you
not a
kind of go, I
melodic
know it
instrument,
kind of
are
just
you?
goes like
Yeah.
this. Yeah. So I'm just like, yeah, I know it's kind of doing that, and I can just kind of come up with a beat, and you can just drive the song along. But with bass, it's like, no, I need to know what key it's in, and I kind of need to know where it goes, and it's because of all that harmonic information. You can't just wing it. You do actually have to kind of know a bit about
Yeah, I
it
mean,
and do
don't
your
get me wrong. I
homework.
know I've played with a lot of drummers who are definitely winging it, but I've also played with a lot of drummers who clearly have like spent the time and they're doing, you know, they are doing the exact drum part for the song and
Yeah,
all the sort of little nuances that sometimes can really make a song. Like if we're doing, you know, if we're doing Every Breath You Take or anything by the Police, they're not just going, you know, ga ah ah. They're doing the actual like proper drum beat to Every Breath You Take, which is played on the toms instead, and you know you can tell they've
yeah,
sat down and learned it, and that's what I'm trying to do as well. It would be easier as a bass player or any instrument if you just sort of learnt it well enough to get through the song. But where I'm at now, I'm trying to get it where it's like, no, I actually want to play this note for note. Like a little thing I've started doing, and this is so big headed. Like I'm so sorry, but it's from a positive place, I think, is I try to imagine when I'm playing these songs, even though they're at weddings, like what if I was actually playing for that artist?
yeah,
Like if
yeah.
I'm
That's
playing
great.
Man, I Feel Like a Woman by Shania Twain, I want to play it as good as I want to, even though it's a wedding for like 200 people in Stoke or something like that. I want to play it with the same level of I'll swear, but no, the same level of like give a damnness as if I was
Yeah.
on stage to 20,000 people playing for Shania Twain. And whether that happens is different. Obviously, Shania, if you're watching, please call me. But I think that level of like give a damn is really important because it's easy.
Yeah, that's great. That is
Yeah,
great. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm all for that. I mean, I used to learn stuff beat for beat, like literally, like, and we did a lot of rock and metal and stuff like Pantera and some pretty complicated songs. But every beat was how it is on the record. That was just how I wanted to do it. I put that
yeah,
pressure on myself. But I think that's a good outlook to have. I think there's a famous quote, and I can't remember who it's by, but it was something like, "Amateurs practice until they can play it right, but professionals play until they can't play it wrong."
yeah. That's a
Because you
really
can
good
kind of
one.
just, you can get a song under your fingers, but then you might still slip up every time it gets to this bit and make the odd mistake. But then when you really nail it, you just can't make a
Yeah,
mistake because you just know it.
it's fully locked in as muscle memory. I also like the quote, "How you do anything is how you do everything." Like if you're gonna do like one thing, seriously, everything should be the same standard. Like, we were joking before we started recording, but like I'm recording this today on a pretty nice camera that I use for all of my work and the podcast and stuff, and good
Yeah.
microphone, all that. I've taken a moment to make sure I'm by the window and it looks nice for you and the people watching. It would be just as easy for me to just turn the webcam on, which is just down here attached to my laptop, not have this on. The MacBook microphone will be okay, but how you do anything is how you do everything. Like the standard, if you hold yourself to a good standard for everything in life, I tend to find everything goes like quite a bit better. Whereas if you treat one thing amazingly with tons of dedication, but then let everything else slip to one side, eventually that thing you care about, you will slip up with that as well because you're letting everything else kind of fall apart. So how you do anything is
Yeah.
how you do everything is a good quote I try to live by.
That's great. I love that. So next section is 10 of my favourite things. So I've pre-shared the list with you because I thought it'll be a bit hard to come up with these on the spot. Originally, this was going to be a quick fire round like in your podcast, but I thought there's no way you can do these quick fires. So I thought I'll pre-share, and I'm going to be kind to you. It doesn't have to be your absolute favourite. One of your favourites for that thing is fine because I know it's hard to commit to one thing with some of these. So
I've tried. I've tried to commit.
Oh, have you? Okay,
I've tried to do some things where I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that's the one. But I change my mind about everything every 10 minutes. Like in 10 minutes, I'll change my mind about one of these questions. But for now, this is what I'm locking in.
Yeah, I'm happy. We'll document what comes out now then.
And then hold me to it. Hold me to it. Yeah, forever.
I get you back next week and I'll be like,
yeah, can I come back on? Redact it.
Yeah. So the first one is your favourite travel destination.
Easy. I love Amsterdam as a city. Really love it there.
Nice.
Been a couple of times. It's lovely, isn't it? I could happily live there. I just think it's dead nice. I think it's really chill. I've only ever been in the colder weather, so I'd like to go when it's warmer. There's some great steak restaurants. There's some great apple pie restaurants. The museums are amazing. The infrastructure of the city is really lovely. Just walking around for coffee and just sort of enjoying the atmosphere. There's like one or two good guitar shops as well, which is always nice. So yeah. I mean, there's a couple of other places that I've been that I like, but you made me pick a favorite, so I'll go with Amsterdam.
Yeah, I like that. I was going to say the only thing that's not chill is looking out for the cyclists because there's a lot of people on bikes.
Yeah. I've seen
place.
quite a lot of people get knocked down and they do not care. Like,
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think
everywhere else in the world, pedestrians have right of way. In Amsterdam, cyclists have right of way. Cars stop for cyclists in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all good though. It's all better for the planet and it's healthier for the people. So
yeah,
I'm definitely not putting it down. I think it's good stuff.
I couldn't agree more. If I lived somewhere where to go from, I mean, it's a bit different for me because for me to go to work, I've got to put one or two basses, an amp, pedal board, all that sort of stuff, and then drive anywhere from, I don't know, last year I did a gig that was 1 mile away, which was lovely. But then I've done gigs that are like 100 miles away, 200 miles away. I've got on a plane to play a gig, these kind of things. Can't do that on a bike, unfortunately. But if I was just going from my house to my office and it was like 2 miles away, and I lived in somewhere like Amsterdam where the infrastructure is there, I would absolutely cycle everywhere. Like, why would you not? It's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. So next one then, and I think I did say it was 10 questions, so this is 2.
Mm-hmm.
Favourite bass strings?
So for me, I'm a very simple guy. I like a 45 to 105 nickel strings. I've got stainless steel strings as well, and they absolutely have the place, but I'm a bit more of a nickel guy. And the sweet spot for me is like they've had 1 or 2 gigs to break them in. You've still kept them clean, so they've still got a nice bit of like zing in the upper mid-range kind of thing. They've got that nice little shiny, sparkly new string feeling, but they've just had a bit rolled off, like just a little bit. The clank has gone away. Like that's. I think what I'm going to do is I need to work out which bass I'm going to assign this honor. But I'm going to get a bass, put round wounds on it, and then I'm never changing them. For that bass, they'll never be changed, and I'll keep them clean, so they're not going to get dirty and get like. Because sometimes I don't know if you've had this when strings get too old. all the intonation starts to struggle and they start to sound a bit something wrong. Like it's like they don't stay in tune very well, I find. But
Yeah.
keep them clean so they just dull all the time. That's the absolute sweet spot for me. But I do like I've got a dingwall, so of course I like zingy bright strings as well. Everything's got a place. Got a bass with flats. I want to get one with tape rounds, like a short scale with tape rounds at some point. But like I said,
Yeah.
everything's got a place. But for me, nickel 45-105, broken in.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Any particular brand for your nickels?
Well, I've used Stringjoy for a couple of months now. I'm very very grateful for them to send me some stuff. I don't have like a locked in affiliation with them, but I like their strings. If I wasn't playing those, I would play the Diodario nickels, I'd say.
That's what
I'm not
I
a
play.
huge like Roto Sound Ernie Ball. They don't seem to last for me. I don't know what it is. I know loads of people who love those strings, but for me, I just don't seem to get along with them very well. But Diodario nickel, I mean, my flats bass, which is my P bass, that's got Diodario chromes on it that are about 3 years old, I'd say, and they're starting to get nice and tubby. They've got that really nice flat wound sound. But yeah, I'd say mostly a Diodario guy, really.
Yeah, that's great. Same for me. Yeah, I use a slightly thinner gauge, but yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
170 is the sort of 100E on the top, but I
Yeah.
think it starts at 40. But yeah,
Yeah.
great strings.
Very nice.
Okay, favorite bass line.
Ooh, so I had a little think about this, and it will change. I do really like September by Earth, Wind and Fire, but I'd say a bass line that always makes me go, oh, like if I'm driving, I'll be in my car on my own, and I'll just go, yes, like whenever it comes in, is Another Day in Paradise by Phil Collins.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
it's not even an exciting bass line. It's like two notes, a slide, another note, and then a little descend, and it's dead easy. Anyone could learn it in a few quick minutes. But it's just when the whole band comes in, it's just like I would describe it as like the perfect line for that section of the song. Because if you're familiar with the song, when the main sort of intro kicks in, there's all these synth parts, these drums. It's nice and atmospheric, but the bass is where it needs to be out of the way. It's out of the way. It's just some simple open notes, and then perfectly in the gap at the end of the riff, there's room for a little do 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 just as we go back into the root note, and it's just dead. It's just really tasteful. It just works. So that's like everything I look for in a good bass line. Really nice, complimentary, not boring, but at the same time, when there's little opportunities to sort of do something, that's the one for me. Another great example as well is the pre-chorus to Mr. Brightside, because that's got a nice little thing where it's like B minor, slide up, little descending thing, A minor, slide up, little descending thing, G, stay on the G because that's when a lot of singing happens, leave that alone, and then we go back up again, and the little slidey extra bits, you go up to the fifth, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, you go up to the fifth and slide and bring that down again. That's in the gaps between the lyrics, and I just think that's really tasteful, and I really look for that in a good bass line.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, I like Mr. Brightside. It's kind of one of them songs where I know it's overplayed, but
I don't
it
think it
is
is.
a very great song.
I don't think.
It's like
I don't
everyone
think
says it's overplayed, but I think it's underrated because if it's forever just an anthem, and bass playing's great in it. It's just that I like all the vocal melodies. I think it's just an absolutely fantastic song, and I remember at the time I didn't like it because it was just all I heard. Like when I was growing up, when I was going out, it was like always on, and it just annoyed me a little bit. But I've since come round and I absolutely love it now.
It's a great song. It's from arguably like one of the best debut albums of all time as well.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I guarantee I hear it more than most people, and I play it more than most people, and I've never gotten bored of playing it. It's just a nice. It's not too hard. There's some little interesting bits you can do every now and again if you really want to. I really like playing the pre-chorus bit, and the crowd reaction at like a covers gig playing that always goes down really well. I can't even imagine. Can you imagine playing that in the Killers? Can you imagine actually the crowd response of playing Mr. Brightside when you're in the Killers. I bet that's absolutely like euphoric and genuinely would
Yeah.
never get old. But I don't think it's overplayed in any way, shape, or form. It's easily one of the most commercially successful songs of all time. I think it's something like, hasn't it like never left the top 100 singles chart or something like that? Gets listened
Oh,
to that
right.
much. It's like that,
Yeah.
and then something like Uptown Funk again. Like a lot of people think that's an overrated song. I disagree. I think that's an amazing song with a great bass
Yeah, yeah.
part as well. Just timeless, good music that will, I think, always be popular.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Okay, favorite food?
Ooh, so I've got loads of foods I really like. At the moment, though, the sun is out. I just love a charcuterie board. Like, just nice and just give me some meats and cheeses. Always pleases.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very happy with that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. Done.
That sounds nice.
Easy
Yeah.
peasy. Yeah.
Fitting for the time of year, and yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, totally. Especially now, like I had a little bit of some for my lunch, and if I could have it for my tea, I would do as well. But yeah, can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with a nice little meat board, little bit of mozzarella, chef's kiss.
Yeah, no, I like that. We in terms of like cheese and that on a board, I used to play in this thrash metal band, and it was back in the days where like you could download albums for free if you put it out and torrents and all that, and
Oh,
we
the good
released a
old days.
debut album, and
Yeah.
on the back of it we said we will play literally anywhere for a cheese board and 24 cans of beer. And that's what it said on the back of our album. We used to go around the country and literally they would put 24 cans on the table and a massive cheese board. And that was our gig fee sort of thing. So we did
It's not
that for
bad.
years.
I've done tours for less. Like, I've done tours and been
Exactly.
like, oh, 6 bottles of water. Cheers, mate. Appreciate that. Yeah, no food, no money for any food or anything. Yeah, cool, right. I'll take myself to WH Smith's for a meal deal then. Appreciate it. Thank you. Again, 10th day in a row.
Okay, do you have a favourite bass player?
It's difficult, really. I don't know if I have a specific favorite. Like, I definitely have like 5 or 6 that I'm always referencing. But at the moment, I'd say like my two sort of like favorites are kind of like Lee Sklar and then like Guy Pratt. I'd say are like my 2 favorite bass players, mainly because they've just got this width and breadth of the careers where they've played for so many people. I mean, Guy's played for, Pink Floyd. Lee Sklar's played for, Lee Sklar played bass on 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Fingy for a start. I mean, that's good enough just on its own.
Yeah,
But then like
Susudio as well.
Susudio,
jamming along to that. Awesome
Phil
song.
Collins. He's depped for Toto. Like, that's pretty sick. Depp gig. Toto. Like 40 or 1,000 people in Paris and all that sort of stuff. But these are all a lot of players I really love. Like people like Pino and Sean Hurley and stuff like that. They're all players that kind of have great careers of almost kind of like being invisible when you need them to be. And also playing and coming up with parts and playing parts live that are just really useful, like just really practical. Like you're not kind of like messing with other bits of the song. Like, I think a good bass player is obviously good in their own right, but they're also very good at helping make other instruments in the ensemble sound good as well. Like, I'm always making sure that I'm sitting with the kick drum, or like I'm really locked in with the drummer and giving them space. Like, if they want to take a fill, I might play something like quite a lot simpler or drop out, and then as they're making their way down to the toms at the end of the fill, I'll do a slide into that next bar, that one, and everything's nice and fat with that fresh kick drum or cymbal sound. Same with guitarists, like, trying to make sure, like, if they want to like take a step up into a solo, or they want to play something that isn't just like basic power chords, they want to do those higher register things and those inversions. I'm keeping that foundation like solid for them, so everything's nice and like all the ground is nice and filled in. Like, I'm the ground floor of the house. That's how I describe me. And then the guitar is like, the wallpaper and all that sort of stuff, and the bits that you look at, the chairs and things like that, and the singing is the paint and all that sort of stuff. But underneath it, you need like a nice, good, solid wooden floor, and that's me.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Have you read or listened to the audiobook of Guy Pratt's
I have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
cool, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
I've read
really
it.
like that.
Yeah, I've read it.
All
I
the
think
stories of on tour with Pink Floyd and everything, and like I've seen some interviews with him when he's talking about like recording for Madonna and stuff. Like it's just amazing thinking
oh, the
back to like
Madonna story is
when they
amazing.
did it.
Where he tracks like a prayer, and then he goes
Yeah,
away, and Madonna invites him back, and she's like, "What do you think of this?" And he gets to sit in, and he's like, "Oh, this sounds amazing. Like, who's that person playing bass thinking they replaced him?" And Madonna's
yeah,
like, "That's you, dummy." Um, Like I love that. Like I audiobooks are my thing. Like I really love audiobooks.
yeah. I'm
I've
into him.
just done the last two. I've just done a Phil Collins, his autobiography, and then Rob Halford from Judas Priest.
Oh, I'll check
That
them
was a
out.
fantastic book. The audiobook's great. It's narrated by um, Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. I did his earlier in the
Cool.
year. I'm just deciding at the moment what I want to do for my next one. My current the two I'm trying to decide between is Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols and Steve Lukather from Toto. I'm just sort of deciding which one I want to do, and also I've got pre-saved on Spotify. I've got Rick Astley's autobiography ready to go as well because I think Rick Astley's had a really interesting career. I know obviously he's known for that song, but
Yeah.
before then it's like he's from a town called Newtonley Willows, which is minutes away from me. Like he's
Same
he's
for
the
me. Yeah,
he is the he's the next motor. Well, he's near you, isn't he? Like
yeah.
because you're like Warrington, aren't you? Kind of way.
Yeah, I used to get the train from Newton
Yeah,
to Liverpool when I was working
exactly.
there.
So
So
it's
it's
like
literally 10 minutes up the road.
and it's ten minutes north for you, 10 minutes south for me. I could have come round. We could have done it in person,
Yeah.
but like yeah, like he's got a very interesting career, and then there's other like the actors and stuff like that. Like I like audiobooks for, but yeah, Guy Pratt's autobiography is a really good one. I might do a re-listen or a reread of that one. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's due for me as well. Have you listened to the Flea audio book yet?
No, I've not
That's
actually.
worth it. It's a bit different to the way it's done, but he's like quite a creative person. The way he tells the story is quite cool. But I think it's called Acid for the Children. But
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I listened
Okay.
to that recently. But yeah, I'm all for the audio books. Put them on before like bed. And then
Oh, okay.
wake
Yeah.
up the next day, and I'm like, right, where did I get up to? Did I
Oh
just fall asleep
no,
through
that'd
half of
drive
it?
me
And
insane.
but
I do them while I'm driving. So
right,
sometimes I'm driving I can be driving for hours at a time.
yeah,
It's a bit less at the moment. I'm quite lucky. I've got quite a few that aren't too far away. But
that's good.
yeah, sticking an audiobook on, like kind of just putting like 2 hour dints in an audiobook or over time, good way to get through books. And it's a bit better than sort of like if you get a bit fatigued from listening to music, because I listen to so much music because I just have to for like I can't play songs I've not heard. Well,
Yeah.
actually I have done that quite a lot when I think about it. I used to do my first ever gig was I was the house band for a jam night, and
Oh, right.
I had to play so many songs. They were like, "Do you know that?" And I'm like, "Yep." And I've never heard it before in my entire life. And I'm literally scrambling, like loading up the Ultimate Guitar app, going, "Oh God, how do I play this Jerry Cinnamon song? Like, what the hell's this?"
Yeah.
So it turned out I got really familiar with Sam Fender's first album, despite never hearing it. Like, what's the really popular Sam Fender song? What's it called? This is killing me. This I'm gonna have to quickly look it up. It's like he's one of his really big tracks, like his first big single. It is 17 Going Under, if you know that one.
Okay.
Really big song, and I probably played it about 30 times before I heard it for the first time. And it turned out I'd actually like accidentally got the bass line right. Because I just sort of someone had sort of like mouthed, like shouted the bass line at me. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it's that kind of thing. And I followed the chords, and then I heard it for the first time months later and was like, oh, yeah, not bad, not bad. Nailed
That was
it.
good.
It's an absolute tune, that one, to be fair. But yeah, in short, Lee Sklar, Guy Pratt, Nathan East, that's another good one. Who's another like big one in that kind of field. Obviously like Pino, but I even like people on the heavier side like Nolly, Jason Newsted from Metallica. You can't Justin Chancellor from Tool, and I refuse to accept people's authenticity as musicians if they tell me Paul McCartney isn't a good bass player. That's a hill I'm willing to
Yeah.
die on. Like I don't really care for the Beatles
I
too
agree.
much, but
Yeah.
Like I love Paul McCartney's playing. Not asked
Yeah.
about listening to the Beatles, but I could learn Paul McCartney lines all day.
Yeah, I am quite a big Beatles fan, but yesterday I was transcribing something by the Beatles,
Yeah, was it the
sort of
song
note for
yesterday?
note from the soloed one. But yeah, it was
Okay.
yeah. So it's one of the classics. It's just amazing his bass playing. But yeah, I agree. He's up there.
Couldn't agree more.
So
Yeah.
favorite bass effect?
Tricky one really, because there's a lot that I do actually really like playing with effects. I don't tend to as much now because I've realised less really is actually more. Especially when you're a working bass player. A lot of the times, a lot of people, I see a lot of bass players who frankly fail to understand this. It's like the people you're playing for honestly don't care about I've got this drive as like a light drive, then I've got a heavy drive, then I've got a fuzz, then I've got an octaver, then I've got some phaser, some flanger, some chorus, some delay, some room reverb. I'd say 95% of the people that I work with honestly just couldn't care less. And if anything, if you start talking to them about it, you're just going to annoy them. So
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
tend to do is I have when I'm doing weddings now, the only things I've got is I've got this is obviously inside the quad cortex, so this is just a digital recreation, but I've got an octave, I've got a fuzz, and I've got a chorus, and those are the only things I'm turning on and off, I would say, regularly. And by that I mean one song in 2 hours will have an octave
yeah.
pedal on, and that's it. But my favorite effect, I'd say, really is chorus. Really
Oh, yeah.
like that sort of wet 80s bass sound, like Duff McKagan, that kind of thing.
Yeah, love
Like
that.
that's really my jam. Like I really love that sound. That sort of, it's not super swirly. It's kind of got that like that shiny sound. It's like a shiny, wet, liquidy bass tone. I really like that sound with a pick as well. That just really like feel like I'm in like Guns N' Roses or Def Leppard. Like I
Yeah.
just love that sound. I'd say it's a chorus. Yeah,
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I'm a big Guns N' Roses fan. I actually made a preset for the Stomp called Duff Chorus, and it sort of
nice.
replicates that sort of
Yeah,
coma intro, maybe the Sweet Child intro, Rocket Queen, that sort of
yeah.
sound he has. Absolutely love it. It just makes you play a different way when you have chorus on. I
It
think
does,
makes you
doesn't it?
play a bit more melodic, and
Yeah,
it just brings out the sort of melody when I play. Anyway, I like
yeah.
it.
I totally agree. There's a stock preset in the quad chords. It's called Duff, and that's like a Galleon Kruger with loads of treble and chorus on and stuff like that.
Nice.
And that's just the sort of like Rocket Queen intro bass part. And um, a few months ago when I did a video for PMT at the filming place, it was to demo one of the Duff McKagan basses, and I had that
Oh, cool.
preset on, and we got there and we plugged it in and played the bass for the first time with this preset, and everyone in the room was like, "Yeah, yeah, that's the tone." It's like absolutely nailed it that
Yeah.
first try. But yeah, chorus,
Awesome.
love chorus.
Love that. So do you have a favorite album?
It's tricky, really. I don't really think I have a favorite album. There's lots of albums I really love, but like I'm a huge Nickelback fan. So there's loads of Nickelback albums I really enjoy. But if I had to pick, and it's a bit of a bold choice, really, um, my favorite Metallica album is the Metallica album with no bass on it. I really love "And
That
Justice for All." Like it's
that's
my
my favorite Metallica
yeah, it's
album as
my
well.
favorite. It's my favorite Metallica album. But the one I like to listen to really is what I'll do is I'll go on YouTube, and the bass channel did a version of the "And Justice for All" album where they played bass on it. So it's like an album long guitar cover. And every now and again, like when I just got an hour to spare, if I'm at home just doing something, I'll put that on YouTube, and it's
Yeah,
like you just get it's "And Justice for All," but with the bass too loud, not too
yeah,
quiet.
that's good.
And I think, and then also if you go on YouTube, there is an album track called "And Justice for Jason," where what they've done is they took the stems of the bass from Guitar Hero Metallica of all
Hmm.
the tracks from "And Justice for All," put that into recordings of the actual "And Justice for All" album, and then
I
mix
see.
them in. So it's not that it's
Right.
too loud. it's just mixed as
What
if
it
you've
should have
just
been.
turned the bass back up to the correct amount. And there's some
Yeah.
amazing parts in there, like Jason Newsted. He's just absolutely battering a Spectre bass into an SVT with a Sans amp in there as well. And it's like one of that and like Rex Brown from Pantera. It's like two of the best bass tones ever, in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like Injustice for All, like one of my I don't have any tattoos, but one of the tattoos I really want to get is I want to get Lady Liberty, well, Lady Justice from Injustice for
Yeah.
All. Like maybe have that like like start of feet to head there, where it's like blind
Yeah.
justice kind of thing. I think they called her Doris, if I remember correctly. So I wanted to get Doris from the album cover, and have that like on my arm. I'd quite like that personally. But yeah, and Justice for All. But there's loads of albums I really
Awesome.
like. You know, all the Right Reasons by Nickelback. That's a great album. So's the album before it, Silver Side Up. That's fantastic. I'm really undoing my street cred here rapidly. But Back to Bedlam by James Blunt is an incredible album. And if you don't like it, you just don't know what you're talking about, in my opinion. But seriously, Phil Collins, that's a good one. Is it No Jacket Required that Susudio's on? I think No Jacket Required's a great album as well. Loads of
Hmm.
Metallica albums that I love. Both Busted albums, incredible. Room on the Third Floor by McFly, again, great album. And Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
I mean, every Beatles album, you just have to kind of say they're good because they just are. End of the day. But yeah, loads and loads of albums I really like. I love live albums as well. Like, that's kind of my excuse of listening to a band. I'll just put like a concert on instead. I tend to enjoy that a little bit more than just listening to the actual songs. But if you made me pick one, which you have, obviously, it'll be Injustice for All, I'd say.
Good choice. Okay, favorite film.
Hot Fuzz.
All right.
Hot Fuzz, greatest film of all time, in my opinion.
I thought you were gonna go for something Star Wars like related like Johnny, but I was wrong
Oh,
there.
did Johnny go for a Star Wars related one?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Which Star Wars movie was it? Revenge of the Sith.
No, because that was the one that got him into it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's where did he say Return? No, he said Empire Strikes Back.
I mean,
Not
yeah,
Return of the Jedi. I think. I
yeah,
think he was that way round. You
yeah.
kill me if I got it wrong.
I mean, Empire Strikes Back is a really good one. I actually, you know what? It's the 20th. Is it the 20th anniversary or the 25th? It's the 20th anniversary this year of Revenge of the Sith. And I think it's a good Star Wars movie. I don't care what anyone says. I think it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't mind the prequels. I don't mind the prequels. I like the original trilogy. Do not like the sequel trilogy. Didn't really care for that. But for me, no, like Hot Fuzz, I'd say is my absolute favorite film. But I've got other ones like Inception. Absolutely love Inception. Terminator 2, Predator.
Oh yeah. Terminator 2. Yeah.
What other like really great films? You know what? It's actually written down because I was talking to someone about this the other day. Let me see if I can find it. Top 5. Gladiator, The Prestige, Heat. Val Kilmer's just passed away as well. Love Heat.
Yeah, amazing.
A couple of honorable mentions before I get to one of my favorite films. The Last Samurai, Whiplash, Hacksaw Ridge. These are all amazing films in my opinion. But also hear me out on this. Muppets Christmas Carol. Muppets Christmas Carol, one of the greatest films of all time, in my humble opinion. Genuinely, if you made me, and I really do made me pick top 3 movies of all time, I would present you in no particular order: Hot Fuzz, Muppets Christmas Carol, and The Prestige. Top 3 of all time, I think.
Yeah, good shout. So, do you have a favorite pickup configuration?
You know what, I do actually, and it's not. I'm just looking at my notes so I remember the right things. I do actually, but it's not in a bass that I own. So my like dream pickup configuration is a P pickup and a Music Man pickup. But I've never played a bass where the P pickup sounds as good as a P bass, and the Music Man pickup sounds as good as a Music Man. Like, but in a PJ, so they end up being Not as good as the actual
Mm,
thing they're trying to intimidate. They're trying to
yeah,
copy, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
But I would love a bass where if I wanted to, I could have the perfect P bass tone and then the perfect Music Man tone. And then in the middle, it would be fine, but I'd never really use it. I'd just jump between the two. I could have it on switch for all I care, just one or the other.
yeah,
But like I said, they just never. I've never played a Music Man and then P bass where when I click onto that Music Man, it sounds as good as my Music Man. Like it just, I don't know what it is. It
yeah.
just never seems to, never not found the one yet, really.
Yeah, I don't know if it's something to do with like the fact that the pickup's taking up space and you've cut a big chunk of wood out and maybe the resonance isn't the same, or there must be some
It
scientific
mo-
reason, but it's the same
yeah,
with PJs. They don't sound like, I know there's a different sort of, you've got the split coil, but it's like you don't quite get the perfect P bass sound, but you've got that P bass pickup in it. So I think that it's just a bit of a trade off, isn't it?
yeah. I've got PJ basses that don't sound like P basses. They sound like their own thing, and they
Mm,
sound good too. But you just don't quite get that. And I think you're onto something there because it's like if you've got just a P bass on its own is the pickup, and then just loads of wood all around it.
yeah,
Whereas if you're
yeah,
then carving out a massive hole for a big pickup, like a Music Man pickup, like a humbucker, you have to be losing something. You must do. So until some magic can occur, I'm afraid I don't think I'll own a bass with that configuration, unfortunately.
yeah. What about favorite bass brand?
You know what? I genuinely love Dingwall. Like genuinely, really like Dingwall. And I'm a Dingwall apologist. Like a lot of people say, like, oh, you can only play metal on them, and that's all they're really good for, and the neck looks stupid. And to that I say you're wrong, because I play loads of weddings with my NG2, loads, and I get
Nice.
loads of compliments on the tone. Mine's got like strings that are like getting on. Like, they've got to be well over a year old now. Um, and they're not zingy at all. You know, like, they've got no like, that like deng deng, sparkle, spanky, new string dingwall kind of thing. They just don't have that now. They're all
Right.
worn out and they just sound nice and smooth, and that low B as well is just dead fat. Like especially in a big PA, you ring that open B out, and everyone in the room goes. Everyone in the band always, when I'm playing with the 5 string, when we finally get to like a D or a C or even a B, and I play that note, I always get at least one or two people look at me and be like, "Nice, like that sounds thick." So that for me, I really like Dingwall. One day I'd really like to own a Super P, like because
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really into the fan fret sort of stuff. I think it really works. That additional bit of mid range you get in the low strings from the extended range, I just think can
Mm.
come across in any genre and any style of music. So like a Super P is definitely something that I'm after in the future, 100%.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I've had a go on one and they feel amazing. It's the having that extra sort of scale length as well really helps for the sort of note definition and keeping your string tension like sensible as well. Because I hate having to like down tune with like and I have to then compromise on the string gauge and then I'm like playing
Yeah,
these strings that are like ropes and I'm like now I just don't enjoy playing the bass anymore and
yeah,
bit of a
I've
compromise,
had the
isn't it?
exact same thought process that you're thinking. Like
Yeah,
I got my Dingwall because a band I was in at the time we were gonna be touring in Drop A, and I was just like, no, I can't. I absolutely can't. Like, not. I mean, I wanted one anyway, but this was like the thing to sort of push me into actually
yeah,
buying one because I thought I absolutely will not get a jazz bass, stick a 170 on it or a one, no, not a 170, like a 140 or a 150 and have like nice high tension, but the string will be like that thick. Um,
mm,
so that the 37-inch scale with in drop A just with the 130 was more than fine.
yeah.
I mean, I just play mine just in B, like it's just in the standard 5-string tuning, but I just think it sounds great. Like I really like those basses.
Yeah, awesome. All right, cool. So that was 10 of your favorite things. And I think we can move on then to the bass signal chains and pedals section. So I've asked Chris to send me a picture of his current pedal board. And what I'm going to attempt to do is share it on screen.
Ooh, yes,
I'm still
please.
new to all this technology, so you might have to
That's all right. Take your
bear with me.
time.
Let's have a look. Right, you should let me know if you can see your pedal board.
I can see my pedal board. There it is.
Awesome. Right, so the question is, can you talk us through your pedal board and then sort of talk us through your sort of live rig, what amp and cab are you using after this sort of board as well?
So, I will explain that, but this particular preset that we're kind of looking at on the Quad Cortex, which we'll get to, is actually when I don't have an amp. So you'll see at the top of the Quad Cortex, there's an XLR cable going out to front of house, and that's it. And I'm on in-ears for that. But to break it down, there's two bits really. So for those of you listening, what you're looking at is you're looking at a small pedal train board with a Quad Cortex on it, a Shure wireless pedal, and a TC Electronic wiretap riff recorder. But then next to it on the floor is a TC Electronic vocal pedal. And I use that quite a lot with a lot of wedding bands because it lets me add harmonies to my voice while I'm doing backing vocals. So I will use that. So what happens is I've got the microphone plugs into the TC Helicon, and then that goes off to the mixer for front of house. But also what's happening is my bass is actually being plugged in to that pedal first, and then it's going into the rest of my pedal board, because what it does is, which is dead clever, is if you're playing and singing, it reads the notes that you're playing on your instrument and runs the harmonies off that.
So it knows what interval to pull.
Yeah, so it knows. I mean, most of the time I just have it set to like an octave down, so it just blended in, so it just adds a bit of thickness underneath your vocal. And I don't use it, just like to clarify, I don't use it, but there is an auto-tune. There's an auto-tune in it. I've turned it on. It's amazing, but I feel like a cheat, so I have that off.
Yeah.
I'd just like to clarify, I have that
Fair
off.
play.
But I might... Sometimes I do turn it on a little bit. It's very fun.
Dream of being a singer.
If you turn it up all the way, you sound like Cher, which is fantastic. But so I use that, and then obviously that's got nothing to do with bass, but my bass is plugged into it, and then that runs into the front of the pedal board, which is either, I don't use the wireless that often, but I could reconfigure it if I wanted to, or I'd go wireless TC pedal, then into the Quad Cortex. So the Quad Cortex is doing everything. It's doing all the heavy lifting. So we'll talk about that in a second. But before that, in the effects loop of the Quad Cortex is the TC Electronic wiretap. Now, if you don't know what that is, that's basically a small portable recording device where you click on the pedal and it starts recording, and then you click it again and it turns it off. And it's mainly there for you to kind of demo ideas, and then you can plug that into your computer and kind of save them and mess around with them and send them to people. But what I like to use it for is I use that to record my bass tone live. And then when I get home, if I filmed it on my GoPro, I'll blend in the bass track. So I can have my bass track on Instagram or YouTube or whatever a hell of a lot louder than what it would be in real life. And then due to the fact that with the Quad Cortex, the effects loop, you can move that around anywhere in the signal chain. So in the past, I've had it right at the front of the signal chain. So essentially what I'm recording is a DI, and then I can go home and I can reamp that DI with whatever effects I want to. Or I put it all the way at the back and it's capturing what you hear for the front of house. And then I use that to sort of like critique my tone as well, to be like, oh, I'm listening back to this, it's way too scooped, or I'm listening back to it and there's not enough low end, or that drive is too much. Like, you don't need that. In the room it sounded good, but listening to it, it's like, actually there's actually too much distortion on that. We need to dial that back. So that's what I use that for. It's mainly like a content tool. But
that's cool. Like, what sort of quality does it record at, and how long can you record for?
You can record for hours, something like 5 hours, I think. And it records at 44.1, or is it 40k? It records. I think it records at 44.1 kilobits per second. So it's at its top spec recording quality. Like I could record a DI and give that to someone at a professional standard, and I like to think they'd be happy with it. But moving on to the Quad Cortex, which is basically just a big old digital modeler. So what I'm doing is it's really quite boring, to be honest. I've got a compressor. I'm going into after the compressor, I'm going into an Ampeg SVT, then I'm going into 8x10 cab, and then there's some effects, and then that's going off to front of house. Like it's really, and the SVT is basically just like everything flat. I think I might be taking a little bit of mid range out, but that really is it. I'm not boosting any treble, any low end. And then you'll see on the photo, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 effects blocks turned on the quad cortex, and they're just treat them as like a pedal board. So I've got a transpose pedal, which I'll use if I have to drop the key in an emergency. So if I'm playing, let's pretend I'm playing September by Earth, Wind and Fire, which is in A, and all of a sudden someone says to me on stage as we're about to start playing, "Oh, we play it in G," that kind of thing, which happens loads, by the way. As a working musician, it means instead of me like panicking and going and having to like play at a different fretboard, different fret position really quickly, because some songs obviously have open strings in them, so it can make it a bit trickier to relearn it on the fly. So what I'll do is I'll just smack that transpose button, take it down a tone really quickly, and it'll get me through. It'll get me through the gig. Obviously, most of the time I'm getting told the key of the song in advance, so I can just go and learn it in that key. But sometimes these things happen, or I've had it before where singer's shown up on a gig and they're not feeling too great, so we've taken the entire set down a tone, and I've either detuned the bass myself, just put it in E flat as you normally would, or I've just kicked that transpose on nice and easy and just gone down half a semitone, which works just fine, really. Then there's 2 drives. There's a vintage microtubes, which doesn't go on that often, really. That's kind of like a little subtle drive, just a little push. Don't tend to use it too often. And then there's a fuzz, which I'll turn on for a few songs. It like needs to be like really gnarly. Like a good example is I actually use it for like Dakota by Stereophonics, weirdly enough, because that song has lots of high up guitar parts and then I use the fuzz to fill in that mid range. I have loads of distortion to kind of fill the gap. But again, as a working musician, I'm not turning these on very often. Like these are coming on. Like the next one across is an octave pedal, and I will use that on a wedding gig, genuinely just to play like what's that Peter Gabriel song? If that comes up, or if
Sledgehammer.
If Sledgehammer comes up, obviously you've got to use it. Like you shouldn't be allowed to play that song without an octave pedal. Or like I like using an octave pedal for like Uptown Funk, that kind of thing. Anything else, so it's going on for like 3 minutes out of 2 hours of music. And then the same applies to the next 2, which is like a flanger, which I'm using like on a slow rate to like get that really wet 80s sound. Like if something really disco-y comes on, or we're playing like Mamma Mia by ABBA or something like that, and I want to sound like proper cheesy 80s, like I'll turn that on. And then finally, that last one there is an envelope filter to get that kind of like auto wah kind of sound. And even then, these, like I said, these things are coming on super rarely. In fact, I use that when I play Uptown Funk as well, just for like that boom, 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 just to get a bit of envelope opening up during the notes. But again, like I said, we're talking a couple of minutes out of like hours of the set. For most of the time, what I'm using is compression, SVT, 8x10 out, and that's it. So that's the pedal board. And then if I am using an amp, what I tend to use is I use the Ashdown Rootmaster, use the RM 500. So, God, I hope it's 500. I've forgotten now. Yeah, it's 500. 500 watt Class D head. Really nice. Love it. Love Ashdown. And then I've got a couple of different Ashdown cabs. I've got 1x15, which I use a lot, and then I've got a really big 410, which is what I take out for the really big for the bigger gigs, basically. But and that's nice and simple. Most of the time, that's not even going to front of house. That's just on stage for me on these big stages. But I'm thinking in the future. Again, it depends on the set and the artist needs. Like this is my like wedding band preset. But then for like other artists I've played for, I've made different things. Like when I used to play for a band called Dirty Blonde about a year ago, the preset I used for that was it was a high watt amp with a distortion pedal permanently on, kind of pushing it with the mid range cranked, and then into a guitar cab.
Yeah.
So that, and I used a P bass for that. So that was like a super mid-range focused,
Well present.
quite really not like bright and trebly. If anything, the treble was rolled down quite a bit, but just really, like P bass with a pick kind of thing, like a
Yeah.
sensible version of Lemmy, I'd say. But then I had
Yeah.
another pedal that I could kick in the front of that to like push it into like kind of like Lemmy territory. And then my other favorite thing I like to use, and I use for loads of weddings, is literally B15, like
Yeah.
compression B15. I use a P bass with flats. That's a tone I've spent years trying to dial in, and I'm really glad I've kind of finally really got that where I'm happy now. So that's used loads. But what you're seeing on the screen right now is the meat and potatoes working man's preset, really. And I could do a gig without all of this stuff if I had to. If I really had to, just a half decent DI with a bit of EQ on it, and in a perfect world, a compressor, and then I'm good to go. I'm good to go, really.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So like if you were to do sort of home recording, say you're recording something, been sent a song, or you're doing some stuff for your YouTube channel, what's your typical signal chain? So would you use a quad cortex or would you use something else, and how would you record bass at home?
So it depends really. So there's been a couple of YouTube demos where what I've just decided to do is, if I'm demoing a bass, for example, it's been bass this preset, and then we've gone into my, I've just got a little Focusrite 2i2 that I've had since I was 18, and I've never owned another audio interface, and it's like that's just seen me fine, and then that's gone into Logic, and we've just gone from there. Or what I've started doing a little bit more now is I've gone from the instrument. Again, this is if we're demoing like a bass, really, I'd say. I've gone from the instrument straight into the Focusrite, and then I've either done just a little bit of generic EQ to kind of just tidy it up and some compression, and that's been it. Or I've actually really started using the stock amps in Logic Pro, just like the generic classic SVT kind of thing. Like it's more than fine for like my content needs if I need to. I've also got, and I've had it for a very long time, like the Dark Glass plugin by Neural
Oh yeah.
DSP, which is like a B7K. I use that loads. If I'm doing something that's like just distorted with a pick, and they don't want something, again, the client doesn't want something ultra specific. So I've had people say to me in the past, like, can you do the Dingwall thing? Like, can you have like, we want really distorted Dingwall fresh strings kind of thing, very bright, lots of pick. And then for that, I've either used either a preset I've made in the Quad Cortex or a stock preset that does the Dingwall thing, the modern metal sound. Or I've built that sound in Logic myself in terms of like I've split the signal in two with a crossover, and then I've compressed the low end, distorted the high end, and I've sent that to the client. But 99% of the time, if someone is hiring me to play bass, they just want a DI. They just want a DI and they want to do it all themselves.
Yeah.
So what they're getting is they're getting me into the Focusrite, recorded, and then out. Or they're getting um, me into an Ashdown Rootmaster, but it's not doing anything apart from just maybe a tiny bit of compression, because there is a compressor on the head, and then that's going
Mhm.
into the Focusrite and off. But yeah, nice and simple. Some clients want a process sound, and then they'll just drop it in, good to go. Lots of people want nothing from you. We want two or three solid takes with some couple of variations on the parts, and then we will do all the mixing and processing.
Yeah, just hand it to the mixing engineer and
Yeah.
let them do the job type thing. Give
Because
it as
what do I?
clean as
Because what do I
possible.
know? Like, how do I like? I might be given a demo to play over, but how do I know that the drums are going to sound like that? Like, the demo could be done on a MIDI drum kit that's like quite tight and bright sounding, and I've done some tonal things to help that. But then in the
Yeah.
recording, they've pulled out a 24-inch kick drum with like loads of low end, like big boomy room sound, and then all of a sudden, this sound I've given them pre-engineered is rubbish.
Hmm.
It's doing nothing for it.
Right.
So I'd rather give people just a blank slate for them to deal with themselves personally.
Yeah. That's great. And yeah, that's good insight then there, because I like sort of seeing how people have the sort of rig set up and the signal chain and how they record at home, because it varies quite a bit, and it's quite interesting
Oh,
to
it
hear
does.
why
Yeah.
people do stuff and see how different it is to other people. So we did talk quite a bit about music, and when we were talking about albums and stuff. So I think I've got a feel for sort of your main sort of musical influences and things like that. So I'll just jump straight into this question. So I know you're a big Metallica fan.
I am.
Who's your favourite Metallica bassist?
It's Jason Newsted. Easy,
I knew you were going to
easy.
say that.
It is, although they're all great, like they're all amazing, and I think a lot needs to be said for the fact that the amount of material Rob has to play now with his fingers is unbelievable. Like he's playing, when they play anything from like Jason Newsted era, he's got to play that with his fingers, and then he's got to play all the Cliff Burton stuff, which is all very hard as well. Like, so I would say
Tough gig, really
tough.
tough
Oh
gig.
yeah, tough gig. For me, so like my favorite is Jason, and I do think when '90s Metallica had this like, well, '80s and '90s Metallica had this like ferocity and like forward momentum that was just like relentless. Like just like I loved it basically. And it's probably because they're all 60 now, but they just don't have that anymore. Like they're a bit
Yeah,
slower. They're a bit heavier because they're a bit slower, but they don't have that. And also, they're not all like raging alcoholics anymore, so that's probably got something to do
yeah,
with it.
yeah, yeah.
But like Rob, Jason is my favorite, but I think Rob is the best. I would
Right.
say like Jason Newsted is like one of my biggest influences as a bass player in terms of like his attitude and just his influence in the material that he's created. Um, but I love all of them. Like Metallica are my favorite band. So I love
Yeah,
every Metallica song, even everything on Saint Anger, which is technically Bob Rock playing bass.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So, in terms of like music, so can you recommend one song which you feel has great bass playing that you sort of really like as well? So it's got great bass parts in it, something you really like to listen to. You might not necessarily have played it, but maybe a recommendation for someone who's maybe not heard it, or just a song you like, really.
Ooh, I'm going through my like songs on Spotify really quickly. There's loads really. I mean, I guess like we said earlier, like if you go back and like look at, for me, it's like looking at the greats, like the really great, the all-time great bass players, like people like Pino Palladino, Lee Sklar, Nathan East, these people, Carol Kay, James Jameson, people who've played for on hundreds of albums over. I know James Jameson didn't play on like hundreds of albums over decades, but he's kind of like the first great bass player, I would say. So, but looking at all these amazing people, and even people who are a bit more modern and working now, like Sean Hurley, or like Blue to Tiger and all that sort of stuff, like. I'll shelve Blue to Tiger for a second, but a lot of these people that I just mentioned, like, what are they playing? Like, when you really break it down and look at what those musicians are playing, it's not as complicated as you think. And if anything, I think the skill is the deliberate, the deliberate taste, like deciding what to do and what not to do. And
Yeah,
it's when you don't play is as important as when you are playing. Like, when you're gonna rest or when you're gonna just go down to like one thing I love is like, and I do it a lot, is if a song's got three choruses, it's like the first two, I might play something that is a bit closer to the kick drum, but then the last chorus will just be straight eighth notes up and down. And a really good example of this, and this is going to sound a bit silly, but "Sugar We're Going Down" by Fall Out Boy, the first two choruses have got playing that's a little bit closer to the kick drum. There's a bit of space, and then as we move into the last chorus, the drum part moves into just like just kick and snare, da 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 da, and then the bass part is just going da 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 da, and it's all locked in. The guitars do the same, and everything like merges into this big solid rhythmic wall. And what I
yeah,
think makes that even better is the fact that we didn't get that moment until the last chorus. Like I think those are those are really good things. But shelving like Blue de Tiger, like I said, like it's a bit different for Blue de Tiger in my opinion, because she's a solo artist as well as a bass player. So I think what you would get if you hired her to play bass on a song is not what she would do as her own creative output as a solo artist, like the lead of an act, because a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff she does in her own material is like there's like slapping, busy parts, these kind of things, because it kind of is all about the bass to an extent with that. Whereas when you're a hired gun, like Guy Pratt, Pino, Nathan East, Lee Sklar, you're you're not you're not important, you know what I mean, in air quotes. You're the foundation of the house, whereas other players like who can take a step forward, they've become what the guitarist is, you know, the wallpaper and stuff. I think
Yeah.
another great example is if you listen to like isolated stems of Get Lucky by Daft Punk, you know, that's B D F sharp E all the way through. It's a 1-3-5-4 and it never changes. But the bass part almost never stays the same. There's different bits of Nathan East's playing where it's just like stabs, as he's just sort of stabbing with the kick drum, and then he's moving to like octaves, like a more disco theme, getting a bit more like Chic Now Rogers kind of influence. And then
Yeah.
as we move further on into the song, there's more passing notes, more chord tones. We get busier and busier, and then we go down again. Like I think these are real indications of like skill as a bassist. Like when are you just gonna lock it in and just play the root as quarter notes, just bomb, 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 bomb. And then when are you going to start walking, walking between chords and using that knowledge of like harmony and chord tones? Like again, like Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney is a master of playing what you never expect. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect him to play most of the things. Like there's iconic Beatles songs where he's not even playing the root notes half the time. Like
Yeah.
he's sitting on the fifth, which to some bass players would be suicide. Like, what the hell are you doing? But it's Paul McCartney, so he can do it, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, thanks for that. So what sort of things have you got sort of coming up? Any upcoming projects? What's next for you? So the channel or any projects in terms of music? What's the horizon look like?
No, is the short answer. I'm not actively pursuing being in a band at the moment.
Okay.
I'm just very busy with the work I've been doing at the moment, like session work for people and stuff. So I'm happy just to stay in that and grow that.
Yeah.
The big continuation goal for me for the rest of 2025 is continuing to grow the podcast, which has been fantastic, and
Yeah.
continuing to grow my own YouTube channel. So just continuing to work on that. By the time this comes out, I think I'll have about 5 videos on there, but I've slacked a little bit. I went down to like 1 video a month, and then I've dropped the ball, and I've not done a video for about 5 weeks. So I want to get that consistent. I think I might be moving house really soon, so sort of like getting a video ready to drop while I'm doing the move, and then film something in the new space and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So for me, really, it's literally just continuing doing what I'm doing, and also like I've got loads of gigs this year, like loads of wedding gigs. I wouldn't have time to be in an originals
Yeah.
band as much as I would love to be in one and have that creative outlet and play music that is mine to sort of show my art to people. I'm just too busy being that guy on bass. That's just what I've got to
Yeah.
focus on really for the time being. So that's the plan for this year, really.
That's great. I think one thing would be really good for your sort of channel is kind of showing people what you do from a session point of view, with your wedding
Okay.
gigs and that,
Yeah.
almost like a video log of,
Yeah.
this is like, I've just got the call for this gig. This is the set. This is how many of the songs I know. This is how many I've got to learn in this amount of time on the day of the gig. It's going to take me an hour and a half to drive, because that sort of stuff's really interesting. That's why some of them questions I asked you, because a lot of people don't know what it's like to do the function band thing for full time. And I think giving that insight, getting that sort of authenticity of your actual day job, I was saying to Johnny this, sometimes with content, it's not about making content for content's sake. Just share what you're doing. If
Yeah.
you're just got a pedal and you're just jamming, like I said to Johnny, I've just got a new pedal through. I'm having a mess about with it, just recording it on my phone, the front facing camera, really low quality. And I sent it to my mate, who's a guitar player, just to show him what I was doing. And then a few hours later, I'm like, I'm going to post that on YouTube. And I've not like purposely sat down, got all the lighting perfect and all that. And it's not the best quality, but sometimes that sort of raw nature of it, people actually like that. And I think that'd work well on your channel because you've got that insight of the whole sort of hired gun.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I think doing something that's a bit like, it won't even really be a day in the life. It will be sort of a start to finish, like, everything from, right, well, I've had the set list confirmed, and then it's like everything from this point onwards, including
Yeah.
like practicing. And then, I think I will do that. The gig I've got this week would be a good opportunity to do that, but I've already learnt the material. So I think in time for the next one, or when something comes up, I think I will do that kind of like an honest, what this is what it's actually like, the real reality of being a working musician. It's like, this is me sat at my desk for 4 hours while I learn these songs, and then now I'm going to drive an hour and a half listening to the set, and then I've got here, I've set
Yeah.
up, now I've got to wait for half an hour, put my suit on, play, grab a coffee, play, go home. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. That kind of thing. I think that's a good point. I think I'll steal that idea. Thank you very much, Shak.
Yeah,
Appreciate
yeah,
that. I'll nick
definitely.
that. Thank
I'd
you.
like, I'd like to see it, and
Yeah, you
I'm
will.
following your channel, so I'll
Yeah.
check it out. And don't be afraid to just use your phone because
Yeah.
sometimes it's the easiest thing. It's in your pocket all the time. You might be backstage, and then you go in. Well, we're on in 20 minutes, and you've got nothing to do. Just pick your phone out and tell people what's going on and
Yeah.
what's coming up, and it's just so easy to get content so easy that way. But yeah, so I wish you all the best, obviously, for all your YouTube channel. I absolutely love the podcast, and I'm going to continue to follow that. I'll have you back on here if you're willing to come back on at some point if I carry it on. So I just really want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me and sharing all your thoughts. And for people out there who are listening, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please remember to like and subscribe and rate the podcast. And thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Tatty bye.